So I make a lot of random videos, and what I'm going to make a random video about today is changing the rear wheel bearings on a 2014 Ford Explorer. This goes from, I don't know, 2011 to 18 or 19 or something. Now it's a random video because it just happens to be a vehicle that I own, but I wanted to make a video just kind of going over a few things for people, because it is a standard wheel bearing change, but if your wheel bearings are bad, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. So this wheel bearing has been changed, okay? Now you can see this is a little bit beat up here, okay? So what you wanna do is you take the wheel off, 19 millimeter, pull it off, right? Then you have two 13 millimeters on the calipers, take the caliper off. Then you have two 15 millimeters to pull the caliper bracket off. And then you have four 18 millimeters holding the wheel bearing on. You have a T40 Torx head here. If you were gonna take this off and you get it off and you're gonna put it back in, use anti-seize on it, because you don't wanna be the guy who's gotta drill these out. And then this nut here is 32 mil, okay? Now, what we have here is we have an Explorer that had a really bad rear vibration, or not vibration, humming sound, right? Well, jack the vehicle up, shake all the wheels and tires, nothing moves, okay? So, here, this is a little bit better. Nothing moves, so we're like, okay, maybe it's not the wheel bearing. Swap the tires front to rear, check the pressure. The noise in the back, it's even worse. So pretty much determined, okay, it's the wheel bearing. Now, previous owner said that they changed the wheel bearings. Now, this is something that you really should never believe someone when they just tell you random crap like that. Like, hey, look, I changed the rear wheel bearings, because this is the rear wheel bearing after I changed it, okay? Or because of me changing it. You'll see that obviously I beat the living piss out of it, and you can see how it's just nasty, okay? Now, the customer did say, or not the customer, the person I bought it from did say they changed it 3 years ago. But they really didn't put that many miles on. So did they change it? Maybe. It's hard to tell. You could probably find a part number somewhere and see if it's OEM or not. And you could probably take this black case off the back here and check the bearings to see if they're even bad. When you get this off, what you really should do is take a piece of sandpaper and sand the inside of the hub here and here and just scuff it and get all this shit off it. And then when I put the new ones on, I spray like a WD-40 or PD Blaster on the new ones before I slide them in. And then I use a shitload of anti-seize on the bolts that hold this on. And then basically just put it all back together in reverse. It's nothing extremely fancy to change the wheel bearings on these, but if you don't have a lift and you gotta do it in your driveway, make sure you got enough room to swing some pressure, because I used a freaking sledgehammer. This is the sledgehammer I used to take this off, and I hit it 30, 40 times before I got it to get to the point where I could shove a bar in there and then hit the bar to pry it off. And I'm just shy of 200 pounds, so you know, if you're not a big guy, or you just don't trust your strength, I highly recommend having a shop do it, or you're gonna have to take this whole hub off and press the bearing out. But if you do that, a lot of times you're gonna end up needing an alignment. But if you are gonna do it, whatever bushings and shit that are in here, you're gonna wanna change, because you already got the stuff taken off. So highly recommend to just change the wheel bearing the standard way. But like I said, it is a pain in the ass, but it's, a guy can do it. I do it on a lift here, which makes it a lot easier because I got this 4 feet in the air and I can swing this 3 foot long sledgehammer at it and bang it. You know, that's part of the reason why there's a dent here. So if you're gonna do it and you're worried about this dent, see, like I just pried this back, it's my own vehicle. If you're worried about this denting and shit like that, there's an 8 millimeter here and an 8 millimeter down here, or a 5/16, and you can pull this dust guard off. Just make sure that you don't hit this with your sledgehammer or hit any of the main components of the aluminum where it could crack and break off. Now, some other stuff that I didn't mention was torque specs. You should just look up the torque specs on your own. That way you make sure they're right. Don't just believe torque specs other people tell you. My personal vehicles, I've been doing these vehicles long enough that I can just do it by hand and it's good. Now, customers' vehicles, I do use torque specs on to make sure it's 100%. Last thing you need is a wheel to fall off someone's vehicle. So go ahead and look them up yourself and make sure you're using the right torque specs, just to make sure. Now, with that being said, I'm going to talk about brakes a little bit here. Once I switch camera angles, just kind of show you a few more things. So what you have here is this rotor here is either the OEM rotor or it's an aftermarket rotor that is literally basically completely crap. Now, there may be, if you take this to O'Reilly's or something, they may be able to cut this rotor. And I might get a measurement from them to cut it, because being a police interceptor, this vehicle does actually have, and see, one thing you need to make sure is see how this touches the rotor here. So you need to make sure that after you change the brakes that your dust guard does not touch your rotor, because it'll be really annoying to have to deal with that sound. And like where I am right now, it's the middle of winter, and last thing you want to do is pull over, lay on the ground underneath your vehicle and try to pry your dust guard off your rotor in the snow. But I don't know if you can, sorry, this video is kind of shitty, hold on. I don't know if you can kind of see the ridge, but there's a massive ridge on this rotor. And I'm sure someone will complain that I'm just putting a screwdriver on this rotor here, but whatever, I don't care. So there's a ridge here, and the ridge is like an 1/8 inch. You can see it. So these brakes got to be changed. Now, I was told the brakes were changed when I bought this, just like I was told the wheel bearings were changed. So I'm gonna have to do brakes on this on another day. I mean, you can see these pads are pretty much shit. So in this case, I'll probably buy full new rotors and everything, because more than likely these rotors are past their prime. But it's always worth checking, getting them cut and saving yourself some money, because these rotors here, I'm not sure what these rear ones cost, but the front ones cost like $180 a piece, because this is a police model. So if you're gonna do something like a wheel bearing, just buy new brakes and rotors and pads and everything and have them ready to go, because you're gonna take the vehicle apart anyway. I was just told they were changed, and I believe the person, which I shouldn't have, but I have a shop and a lift, so I'll order all new brakes online, and in a week or two I'll just do all the brakes. And this kind of gives you an example of what it looks like in here after you get the wheel bearing out, and this is why we have to sand this.